Hello everyone, I'm UseFlange11. You may know me as a Wooden Railway user amongst many in the Wooden Railway community and the Thomas fandom as a whole. But despite this, I'm one of those guys who loves Thomas a lot, so I thought why not try making analytical videos on my favorite Thomas topics and things I want to talk about. So join me as we dive into these topics that I bring to the table in the new analytical/essay series. This is Useful Talks About. Welcome everyone to the first episode of Useful Talks About. Before I continue on, I want to state that this wasn't originally going to be the first episode of Useful Talks About. It was going to be the second episode because my first idea I had for this series was on if this was or wasn't Henry. And I was going to go in and explain my thoughts and theories and just things that I thought to point out that didn't make sense. But as time went on, I went back and forth on this idea for a while and I realized that it was kind of a stupid concept and decided to scrap it. And decided to move this to be the first episode. Now with that side note out of the way, let's get into the actual topic we will be talking about today. One of the things I love about Thomas and Friends is the narrow gauge engines, whether if it be Railway series or TV series or just seeing little appearances that they had in the CGI series. I absolutely love these characters, and I love all the different ones that we have throughout the era of the show. However, we are not going to be talking about the Skarloey engines. We are actually going to be talking about the other narrow gauge railway that used to be on Sodor before it closed in 1947, the Mid-Sodor Railway. So you may be wondering, what are we going to be talking about regarding the Mid-Sodor Railway? Well, we know the saying,
other engines came and went, but Duke outlasted them all.
So you might be thinking we are talking about the other engines that worked on the Mid-Sodor, right?
Wrong!
If you guys have actually read the title by now, we are going to be taking a look at some Mid-Sodor OC characters. Basically, what I mean is, in my time of watching Thomas content, I've seen a few Mid-Sodor characters throughout my time that weren't actually Mid-Sodor characters. They were pretty much the original user's creation, and I generally want to take this time to stop and talk about them, as these are not officially Mid-Sodor engines, but like the audio states, engines came and went, so it's a possibility that these engines could have worked on the Mid-Sodor Railway. And today, I'm going to be taking a look at these, also an added bonus. This is also a ranking video, giving you guys my perspectives on where I feel on these OC characters that aren't officially Mid-Sodor engines. Also, another disclaimer, I'm going to be talking about someone in this video that is no longer a part of the Thomas fandom, but they created an OC character before their departure. So please don't hate me for this, but without further ado, let's get into this. Now, before I go any further, I did want to give an honorable mention to these two OC characters that I saw on a YouTube channel, Vincent and William, as these OC characters were created by RWS GlitchFan07. However, not much is really known about them, and to be fair, I kinda didn't really find them interesting. So I wanted to give an honorable mention to them in this video. They're not officially on the list, but I just felt like it'd be wrong if I didn't mention them. But now, we come to the official number 4.
Back long ago, before the railway was in danger of closing, Freddie worked with Sir Handel and Peter Sam, who were named Falcon and Stewart at the time. They also worked with Old Duke and an engine named Roy. Roy was spry for his age and competitive.
Roy is an OC character that was created by Cody, also known as BlueTraxDak. Roy is spry for his age and also quite competitive, especially when racing Freddy down to the goods yard. One day, he and Freddy were having a race and came off the rails and tumbled down the mountain, but thankfully Freddy found him and rescued him in the end. Also, quick side note, this story is one of those stories showing how Freddy got his full name from Freddy to Fearless Freddy. Now, I do love Roy's personality. When you watch the episode, this really does feel like an original character, especially with the competitive nature. And while I do like this personality, there is one reason why I placed him low on my list. His model is represented with a yellow Reneus. Now, I understand if Cody is not good at making, full-on customs. He has made the red engine. He also has a custom of an old shape Henry, but I don't think that was made by him though. But all the while I watch the episode, I'm thinking, why wasn't this Smudger? Because honestly, I think he'd be better suited for this role. He's mostly prone for derailing, so it makes perfect sense. However, I'm not here to crap on other people's ideas. It's just an idea that I had while I was watching this episode over and over and over again. In conclusion, Roy is an interesting persona for a mid-Sodor character. I do quite like him, but like I said, the fact that he's just a yellow Rheneas is the reason why he's so low on this list, but nonetheless, this is still a good episode by BlueTraxDak, and I highly suggest checking it out as well as his entire series. I'll be linking his channel in the description. Number 3.
We have a new engine coming from Fletcher and Jennings. Please give him a warm welcome.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's about time we got another engine.
Hello. You must be the new engine. I'm Albert.
And my name is Crimson. You know, like the color. Isn't it obvious?
Crimson is an OC character that was created by Thomas I, Edward II, Henry III. Although at the same time, the more I think about it, I think that Crimson was actually made by the Sodor workshops or something to that nature, because I saw Crimson in this remake of Grandpuff when Duke is telling Stuart and Falcon the story of Smudger. There he literally is right there. But apparently, I guess Crimson is technically created by Thomas I, Edward II, Henry III. I don't know. I guess it's really confusing, honestly. Now, sadly, we don't know much in terms of Crimson's personality, as we don't see much of it in the Smudger movie. However, I decided to look towards the wiki for the engines of Sodor for an answer. And it said that Crimson seems to be a well-meaning, eager engine who occasionally gets annoyed. It also seems that he doesn't like his name.
And my name is Crimson. You know, like the color. Isn't it obvious?
Which is funny, because from what it looked like in the special, I thought he liked his name, but, you know, I could be wrong. The wiki also states that he left the Mid-Sodor Railway around 1916, which in my opinion is pretty early considering the fact that the Mid-Sodor Railway wasn't even in decline/closure around the time. In conclusion, you may be wondering why I placed Crimson above Roy, since we don't know much about his character. Well, the reason is because his model is actually original, and honestly, Crimson was going to be one of 2 Mid-Sodor characters I was going to add to my headcanon. However, I decided not to when planning out what engines I would have on the Mid-Sodor. As for the second engine, well, you'll find out when we get to the number 1 spot, but we're not there just yet. Number 2.
Hello. I'm the new engine.
Obviously.
What he means to say is, welcome. What's your name, new engine?
Ah, Brenner. Welcome to the team. We could certainly use your help.
That remains to be seen.
Brenner is an OC mid-Sodor character that was created by Turtles and Thomas, or as you know him, Turtles. Now, a lot of people are going to hate me for bringing him up, but the reason I do is because, well, Turtles has technically created an OC mid-Sodor character. In fact, after rewatching this episode of Turtles Erdles, I ended up in a mid-Sodor phase many months ago. It was actually the thing that gave me the idea for this video, and made me realize how many other mid-Sodor characters there were, thus this video was born. So let's take a look at Brenner. Now, Brenner is an interesting OC mid-Sodor character because he's actually Jennings. Now, let me explain. I think before Luke Ryan made his mid-Sodor Mysteries video, at the time, we didn't know who these engines were really. I knew about Jerry, but I didn't know about Jennings or John, or about how the 2 mine engines were not Atlas and Alfred. Also, I think it's safe to say before I knew about Jennings, Turtles decided to turn this sort of Rheneas-looking character into his own original spin. And to be fair, this episode that Brenner appears in is technically supposed to be a love letter to Andrew Brenner with the opening sequence. But what is Brenner's personality? Well, he seems nervous when we first meet him.
Hello. I'm the new engine.
But I think he grows more confident when he's paired up with Cora, and he wants to really keep the Mid-Sodor Railway open and alive, even though it's just not possible when it's on the verge of closing. but one of the things he loves to do the most is breaking from song to time to time. One of these moments is when he cheers up Cora after she tells Brenner the story of what happened to Proteus not long before he came, which you can technically see in another Turtles Erdles episode. In conclusion, the reason I placed Brenner second on this list is because he really has an interesting personality, but the reason he's not number one on this list is because he technically is supposed to be Jennings. However, I will admit, this is a really extremely well thought out character. And despite what people say about Turtles, I can't help but go back and watch the mid-Sodor episodes that he produced, as I think out of the one that was written by Turtles and the other two that were written by EE93, which of course makes them better by default. And finally, number 1.
Engines, I have just signed an agreement with the Isle of Man Packet Steamer Company to allow their steamers to call at Alsborough West.
Does this mean we'll have more passengers, sir?
It does indeed. Express trains will run twice daily to meet the steamers.
May I ask, sir, who will be taking these express trains?
I have purchased a new engine, Andreas, to be our new number 2. Winston will be bringing him up tomorrow morning. The next morning, Winston brought the new engine up to the Alsborough interchange.
Finally!
Andreas exclaimed, once he was on his wheels.
Excuse me?
They only took half that long to load me at Knapford.
They also have bigger cranes at Knapford. We didn't want to drop you.
If I'm to be your express engine, I thought you to treat me with a bit more urgency.
Andreas is an OC mid-Sodor character that was created by WildNorWester. In my humble opinion, I think that Andreas is the best OC character created hands down. However, let me explain why I think this. So what do I love about Andreas? Well, I love his personality, I love his design, I love the color he wears. It's technically yellow, but it's a very unique type of yellow. And while his face is pretty much a Max/Monty face, I feel like I could hardly even tell unless I was able to be looking at Andreas and Max and Monty close to each other. So what's his story? Andreas came to the Mid-Sodor Railway after the manager scored a deal with the Isle of Man Packer Steamer Company, which meant more passengers, which meant the manager needed to bring in a new engine. That was Andreas. Although he hadn't been on the railway for that long, and yet he didn't make the first good impression. He thought that Atlas was small, he accidentally left a passenger behind, and then he lied to cover it up. Duke tells him the story of Stanley's downfall, so he shapes up for a little while and is put back on passenger trains. But then after the real truth of the matter of the incident was revealed, he was put back on goods work again. The final nail in the coffin was when the truck pushed him off the side of the wharf onto the standard gauge railway and almost being crushed by Lily. In the end, Andreas got an interesting fate, as he was turned into a new steam launch, aka a boat. Now, I can't be the only one who likes Andreas, as he is seen in the Mid-Sodor Golden Years game, and some people have made customs of him, and some people like using him in their own fan series. Now, like Crimson, I was originally planning to use Andreas in my own videos. However, I'll get to that in a second. But in conclusion, I think that Andreas is the best Mid-Sodor OC character. I absolutely love the performance that Tom Wood 55 gives Andreas in Sodor the Mon Years. And I also have to admit, I do like the voice that Victor Tanzing gave him.
Nice to meet you, Rusty. I look forward to working with you.
Before he killed him off in season 4.
Andreas!
It's just that amazing and baffling that Victor Tanzing has done more with this character than the original creator itself. Which is funny because that shows that I technically found out about Andreas through Victor Tanzing. In conclusion, all the OCs I've talked about here today, is obviously the ones that relate to the Mid-Sodor, are very interesting and quite fascinating. However, I've realized something with the people who have made these OC characters, so let's take a look at something more deeper. WildNorWester has Duke, Falcon, Stuart, Atlas, and then the former number 2 Stanley until Andreas came. Turtles and Thomas had Duke, Falcon, Stuart, with Smudger, Bertram, and Proteus as well, and we'd later see Albert and Jerry later on. and then Brenner arrives. Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 has Duke, Falcon, Stuart, along with Smudger, Albert, Jim, and Crimson. And finally, BlueTraxDak has Duke, Falcon, and Stuart, as well as Freddy, and along with Roy. There's a certain pattern that I realize here. Not all the official characters that work on the mid-Sodor are on the mid-Sodor. When I take a look at all these creators as a whole, they've left out a few of the characters. Sometimes Jim and Jerry. Characters that have been left out completely, such as Tim and John. Here's the thing, when you cram all the engines that are supposed to be on the mid-Sodor in the context of the Railway series, plus some extras from the TV series, and then these OC mid-Sodor characters, it feels like a lot. But by not having every single character that worked on the mid-Sodor Railway, and these multiple headcanons, it makes these characters fit into the world naturally. And that is why I've considered dropping Andreas and Crimson from my mid-Sodor headcanon, because I don't want my mid-Sodor Railway to be too cluttered with other people's OC characters, because I don't want my mid-Sodor Railway to be too cluttered with other people's OC characters that are not official. Even though I love using some people's original characters to some extent, despite these interesting characters that I've taken a look at today, I will say, all in all, they are all really useful engines all the same. With that, everyone, this has been the first episode of Useful Talks About. I had a blast making this episode. Even though it wasn't originally going to be the first episode, this topic was kind of really something I wanted to cover for this series. However, now I need a bit of feedback here. If you guys like this series and want me to continue making more of these, let me know down in the comment section below. However, if this series doesn't do well after this episode, then I don't think I'll be making more of these episodes. But, of course, that all depends on if you guys like it or not. And also, these episodes are going to be spread out far in between, because as much as I love branching out and doing more analytical type content, I'm always going to be a Wooden Railway user at heart. But overall, I think that's pretty much it for me. So without further ado, Useful Engine 11 signing out, take care everyone, and I'll see you all next time.